A memo was sent. The instruction was clear.
There is not one decision in this church today that came out of deliberation. Is thus saith the Lord.
Pastors of Living Faith Church were to refrain from attending external programs, especially those hosted by former pastors or sons of the commission, without formal approval. At first glance, the June 2, 2025 memo appeared routine, maybe even strategic. But what followed shocked even those who supported it. Instead of reducing attention around Bishop David Abioye's new programs, the restrictions seemed to ignite a wave of interest and participation. Let's back up. Bishop David Oyedepo, founder and president of Living Faith Church Worldwide, also known as Winners Chapel, has led one of the largest Pentecostal movements in Africa for over 4 decades. At his side for most of that journey stood Bishop David Abioye, his longtime deputy, friend, and fellow general in ministry. In October 2024, during Oyedepo's grand 70th birthday celebration, Abioye formally retired from the commission, stepping away in honor and peace. Or so it seemed. Barely months later, Abioye launched the monthly Hour of Revival, a vibrant, interdenominational prophetic program focused on awakening believers and reigniting spiritual fervor. The program, rather than being a small quiet move, quickly gained momentum across Nigeria and even abroad.
The Lord said to me, this revival fire that is starting locally will go globally. It's reaching out everywhere. For his anger endureth but a moment.
Then came the memo. Released by the church secretary under the authority of Bishop Oyedepo, the June 2 memo cautioned all Living Faith pastors to prioritize internal programs and seek official clearance before attending external meetings, especially those hosted by retired or disengaged ministers. Though the memo didn't name Abioye, the timing and language were too pointed to ignore. Naturally, many assumed the program's influence would shrink. After all, if church leadership disapproves, surely the followers will stay back, right? Wrong. In a surprising twist, the latest edition of Hour of Revival witnessed an overflow. Crowds gathered in large numbers, many of them believed to be Living Faith members themselves. It wasn't a decline, it was a surge. So now, a question arises. Is this open defiance? Or is it a case of believers following a familiar voice they still trust? Or maybe, just maybe, it's about something deeper. A hunger for revival.
The Lord said to me, this revival fire that is starting locally will go globally.
The memo and the expected outcome. Let's take a closer look at the memo that sparked it all. Dated June 2, 2025, the memo circulated across regional offices of Living Faith Church was titled Memo on Church Programs and signed by the Church Secretary, Adebisi Abolawade. The document clearly emphasized 2 main things. All Living Faith pastors must prioritize in-house church services and programs. Attendance at external programs, especially those organized by retired, resigned, or disengaged pastors, requires clearance from headquarters. The reason given? To avoid loss of focus and compromise among the pastoral team. While the language was guarded and no specific names were mentioned, almost everyone within and outside the church circles understood who the memo referred to: Bishop David Abioye. As the memo spread across WhatsApp groups, church platforms, and eventually blogs and media outlets, a common assumption began to form: Abioye's revival programs would take a major hit. Without Living Faith pastors showing up, without the endorsement of the leadership, surely the movement would dwindle, or at least plateau. Some saw the memo as an act of spiritual protocol. Others saw it as the beginning of an invisible line being drawn between father and son. But the assumption was clear: fewer pastors, fewer members, smaller impact. This was expected to be the cooling moment, the point where the hour of revival would begin to wane. Instead, what followed was a storm of revival. The reality: outpouring attendance. Rather than decline, Abioye's Hour of Revival witnessed one of its largest turnouts to date. In Abuja, where the July edition of the Hour of Revival kicked off, the venue was packed to capacity. Not just filled, but overflowing. Chairs were scarce, aisles were filled, and the spiritual atmosphere was electric. There were testimonies of salvations, healings, deliverance, and prophetic utterances. But what shocked observers the most wasn't just the crowd. It was who was in the crowd. Eyewitnesses and social media videos revealed that many Living Faith Church members were present, despite the restriction on their pastors. These were choir leaders, home cell workers, and long-time members who had followed Bishop Abioye for years. Some said they came not in rebellion, but because they believed Abioye's message still carried weight for their spiritual growth. In fact, a few members openly said they felt drawn more by the hunger in the atmosphere than by any political divide. "We didn't come here to disobey our church. We came here to obey the voice of God," one attendee remarked in a TikTok video that went viral. And so, what was meant to shrink the program accidentally amplified it. The public began to murmur, "Why ban people from a program that is clearly bearing spiritual fruit?" Even non-living faith members started to pay attention. The media, as expected, pounced on the story with headlines like, "Despite ban, Abioye's Hour of Revival draws historic crowd. Cold War in the pulpit? Faithful still follow Abioye. Oyedepo's memo backfires." It seemed the restriction, intended to protect order, only stoked the fire of interest. Was this rebellion, loyalty, revival, or all of the above? Whatever it was, one thing was clear: Abioye's influence hadn't shrunk. It had swelled. And now, the church, along with the watching world, is left to ponder the next move. Why people still attended? The question on everyone's mind was, why did people still attend Bishop Abioye's Hour of Revival despite the cloud surrounding the memo from Living Faith Church? The answer isn't as complicated as it might seem. In fact, it comes down to three undeniable realities: spiritual hunger, relational loyalty, and strategic openness. 1. Spiritual hunger. A cry for more. The body of Christ, especially in Nigeria and much of Africa, is experiencing a hunger that goes beyond denominational lines. Many believers are no longer satisfied with routine church services, motivational sermons, or institutional religiosity. They want fire. They want truth. They want transformation. This is where Abioye's Hour of Revival hits the mark. At every hour of revival, attendees report a tangible move of God, prophetic utterances, soul-stirring worship, and messages that cut straight to the heart. In a time where many churches are accused of prioritizing performance over presence, Abioye's meetings feel like a breath of fresh spiritual air. People are not attending out of rebellion. They're attending out of desperation for revival. They're not trying to be controversial, they're simply thirsty. And when people are thirsty, they'll go wherever water is being poured out. 2. Support for Abioye, a voice they still trust. Let's not forget, Bishop David Abioye served under Bishop David Oyedepo for over 3 decades. He wasn't just a staff member, he was a spiritual father to thousands, a mentor to countless pastors, and a symbol of stability in the ministry. Even after stepping away from the system, many still see Abioye as their spiritual compass. So when a memo appears to restrict engagement with someone they've followed, learned from, and loved for over 30 years, there's bound to be some resistance, not because they want to disobey leadership, but because it feels unnatural to cut off that connection. Many of those attending the Hour of Revival aren't strangers. They're disciples, mentees, long-time followers who still carry Abioye's spiritual DNA. And in the hearts of many, loyalty to a father figure carries weight, even if the institution moves in a different direction. 3. Interdenominational branding. A strategic move. Another reason why attendance remains strong, if not stronger, is how Abioye framed the Hour of Revival. From the very beginning, he made it clear, this is not a church service. This is not a breakaway church. This is a prophetic interdenominational move of God. That means no church transfers, no recruitment, no poaching of members. Instead, the Hour of Revival was positioned as a safe, spiritually charged gathering ground for anyone who believes in revival, regardless of their church affiliation. This gave members of other churches, including Living Faith, a plausible reason to attend without necessarily defecting or rebelling. It wasn't about church lines. It was about kingdom urgency. In the end, what drove the crowds wasn't curiosity or controversy. It was hunger. It was honor. And it was the hope of a fresh outpouring. Abioye's vision for the Hour of Revival. If you listen closely to Bishop Abioye during any recent Hour of Revival meeting, you'll notice a recurring theme. This is not a church-building campaign, it's a nation-shaking mission. From the start, Abioye has maintained that the Hour of Revival was birthed from a divine instruction, not ambition. And the goal is simple: to awaken the sleeping church. God's plan is to awaken the church. During the most recent revival meeting, Bishop Abioye made a bold and powerful statement. God's plan is to awaken the church through this program, state by state, nation by nation. There is too much slumber in the body. The hour has come for a revival of righteousness, holiness, and power. It wasn't said with hype. It was said with conviction. This wasn't a political response to the memo. It was a prophetic charge to the church. Globe showing Europe-Africa the expansion plan. Revival on the move. Here's where things get interesting. The hour of revival isn't staying local. It's going national and global. Bishop Abioye announced a schedule that stunned many and excited thousands. Abuja, July 12, 2025. Kickoff with the theme, No More Sorrow. Benin City, Edo State, July 24th to 25th. Tanzania, July 30th. Ibadan, Oyo State, August 7th to 8th. Winnipeg and Toronto, Canada, August 27th to 29th. And that's just the beginning. The goal? All 36 states in Nigeria. Multiple nations. One revival fire. He wasn't building a new church denomination. He was mobilizing an army, a spiritually hungry army ready to carry revival into every neighborhood, street corner, and city gate. Sparkle's not about empire, about awakening. Perhaps the most striking part of Abioye's speech was this. We are not here to pull people from one church to another. There are too many unsaved souls on the street. Let's focus on them. Revival is not about migration. It's about transformation. This wasn't a man trying to steal sheep. This was a shepherd trying to revive the entire flock, no matter which fold they came from. By explicitly telling his followers not to compel anyone to leave their current churches, and not to invite people from other church frontages, Abioye made it clear, this is not rebellion, it's revival. The message is powerful. The vision is large. And the execution has already begun. And if the growing crowds are any indication, the hour of revival may just become one of the most impactful movements of this decade. Kingdom or control? As the revival fire keeps burning and the attendance at Bishop Abioye's hour of revival intensifies, a pressing question has now emerged, not just among living faith members, but across the body of Christ. Is this move of God being embraced, or managed, encouraged, or controlled? Let's break it down. Is this about protecting the flock or protecting an institution? To be fair, every ministry has the right to set boundaries. Every commission must safeguard its doctrine, leadership flow, and pastoral integrity. That's understandable. But the real tension arises when these safeguards begin to look like silent gatekeeping. The June 2, 2025 memo from Winners Chapel did not mention Abioye by name, but it clearly stated that no pastor should attend programs hosted by retired or disengaged ministers without headquarters clearance. Given that Abioye had just launched a monthly interdenominational revival program, it was almost impossible not to link the memo directly to him. Was the restriction designed to protect spiritual order, or to prevent spiritual leakage? If the revival is producing fruit, shouldn't the church support it? Thousands have testified of healings, salvations, and personal encounters at the hour of revival. The program is not denominational. It doesn't ask people to change churches. It doesn't recruit pastors or set up a parallel structure. It simply offers one thing, a platform for divine encounter. So then, if it's bearing fruit, should it be feared or embraced? This is where the debate deepens. Those in defense of the memo say, structure is necessary, distraction is real. If pastors are constantly attending external events, they may abandon their primary assignments. Fair enough. But those in support of Abioye's openness say, why restrict kingdom collaboration when the harvest is so vast? Why divide forces when the enemy is united? So again, we ask, is this about divine instruction or denominational preservation? Should members need permission to attend a kingdom program? In today's world of mass communication and digital evangelism, can anyone truly control who attends a program? Should church members have to seek approval to attend a spirit-filled, soul-saving, interdenominational program led by someone they've known and trusted for decades? This becomes more complex when the one hosting the program, Bishop Abioye, is known for integrity, humility, and doctrinal soundness. What does it say about church freedom when lines are drawn between father and son, teacher and protege? Is that kingdom maturity or institutional insecurity? Can God said contradict the spirit of unity? Perhaps the most challenging piece of this debate is Oyedepo's defense that the directive came from God's instruction. Now here's the tough question. Can God instruct a man to limit association with another man who's equally preaching Christ, winning souls, and walking in holiness? Yes, God calls us to separation sometimes, for doctrine, purity, or calling. But He also calls us to unity, especially within the body. So again, we ask, does God said justify spiritual segregation between two generals who once led side by side? Only eternity will tell. Where is the line? The truth is, there are no easy answers. The June 2025 memo created ripples across pulpits, social media, and pews. It raised questions about structure, loyalty, fatherhood, freedom, and the boundaries of spiritual influence. Bishop David Oyedepo says the memo came from divine instruction. Bishop David Abioye continues his assignment, growing his revival platform while encouraging peace, soul winning, and inter-church respect. There's no open fight, no public shots fired, but the tension is real. And the crowd? They keep coming, not because they want to defy church law, but because they want more of God. So what now? Will living faith extend the memo to members? Will the hour of revival continue to draw the masses despite pressure? Will spiritual leaders find a path forward that celebrates both structure and revival? Two fathers, one faith. But when personal calling and institutional protocol collide, the church must ask, what builds the body and what bruises it? Because at the end of the day, Jesus is coming for one church. Not many camps, not factions, just one bride. So perhaps the true test of this season is not attendance, not programs, not policies. It's discernment. Will we choose control or kingdom? Will we defend egos or embrace revival? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Bishop Oyedepo's restriction is wisdom or fear of competition? Should members be allowed to attend programs like Hour of Revival freely? Can unity survive separation in leadership?